The law of sines. The law of sines is a trigonometric rule using any triangle. So this means isosceles, right triangles, scalene triangles, any triangle, like literally any triangle. It's not explicit or only for right triangles, although a lot of what we've been doing is on right triangles. So the law of sines is for all triangles, and it relates the angles and opposite sides of triangles. So what this would look like is side A divided by sine of its opposite angle, which would be angle A, is proportionate or equal to side B divided by the sine of its opposite angle, B, which is proportionate or equal to side C being divided by the sine of its opposite angle, side C, angle C. So this is a law of sines right here. A over sine of A is equal to B over sine of B is equal to C over sine of C. This is extremely important to remember, and it's actually a really neat tool to use in trigonometry. And I'm going to help you guys visualize this and make sense of it a bit better. So let's make our own triangle instead of a right triangle, since I've been using those a lot in my videos. So let's make our own little triangle here. Nice to get a fresh start. And let's visualize this. So let's say this angle right here, this is angle A. So that means the opposite side to angle A, which would be this side right here that I'm kind of highlighting here. That's the opposite side of angle A. That would be side A. So this is side A. Now, if this angle right here is angle B, then that means the opposite side of angle B, which is this side right here, is side B. So this is side B. And that means this must be the remaining angle, which is angle C, and the opposite side of this is right here, the only unmarked side, which means this is side C. So this is what the law of sines kind of means. So that it's basically saying whatever this side is right here, so this side divided by this angle, the sine of that angle, is proportionate to this side divided by the sine of this angle right here. And then obviously that's all proportionate or equal to this side right here divided by the sine of this angle. So I hope that clears up and helps you guys visualize the law of sines. So now let's go ahead and make a new triangle and use the law of sines for a little problem here. So let's make our triangle here, and we can kind of set up our ratios, and there will be some cross multiplication. In fact, I just made a right triangle. I don't know, I didn't even realize that myself. Let's make a nice little triangle here that isn't a right triangle. It's kind of hard to do that. So let's say this angle, we're going to say this is 37 degrees. I like 37, it's a nice number. And we're going to say this is 12 centimeters. And we're going to say that this side right here is x, and we want to solve for that side. And this angle right here is, I don't know, we're going to say 22 degrees, all right? So now let's use the law of sines to solve for x here. So let's set up the ratio first. So let's start with 37 and 12. So we're going to start with 12. So we're going to say side 12, the side that's 12 centimeters long, divided by the sine of its opposite angle. So the angle that's opposite to this side that's labeled 12 centimeters is 37. So the sine of 37, all right, and here I can probably write that a bit neater here for you guys. So 12, the side that's 12 centimeters long, divided by the opposing angle. So the angle that's opposite of that side is 37. So the sine of 37, all right, and that is proportionate to, and then we're going to take this other angle and this other side here. So the other side is x, because we don't know what that is. x divided by sine of 22, because 22, this angle of 22 degrees is opposite of x. So sine of 22, sine of 22. And we could just cross multiply here to figure out what x is. So sine of 37 multiplied by x. So sine of 37 multiplied by x is equal to 12 times sine of 22, since we're cross multiplying. So sine of 22. Now, how do we solve for x? Well, we can just divide both sides, and I'm just going to divide the whole thing by the sine of 37. And you may be wondering, why divide by the sine of 37? Well, the reason for that is because the sine of 37 is being multiplied by x, and we're trying to isolate x just to solve for it. So we're going to divide both sides by sine of 37 to remove the sine of 37 on the side that's multiplying on x. So this will give us x is equal to 12 times sine of 22, 12 times sine of 22 divided by sine of 37. So sine of 37. And now if I do this in my calculator, so we can do 12 times the sine of 22 and divide it by sine of 37. And that's about 7.5. It's like 7.46 and a bunch of other numbers. We're going to say 7.5. So x is approximately 7.5 centimeters, since that's our unit of measurement here. So this x here, we can now erase that and change that here. So this x here is now 7.5. 7.5 centimeters. And that is the law of sines, and how you can use the law of sines solving for sides on a triangle. Remember, this is very important to remember, the law of sines. This is kind of like your formula almost. This is the ratio for the law of sines. It's very important that you remember this. Obviously, there are many other online resources and ways you can remember this. You can jot it down in a notebook. You can look it up. But just remember that the side divided by the sine of its opposing angle is proportionate to another side divided by the sine of its opposing angle, and so on. And I hope that's not too complicated to understand, but that's the way I think of it and would word it. That is the law of sines.